Everybody, welcome back to another episode of Together We Harvest. In this video, I'm going to share with you exactly how I set up a backyard maple syrup cooker. And I'm going to be using this fire pit behind me. So a couple years ago, my wife and I designed this fire pit. We would generally have the fire there, and then we'd take the coals or use charcoal there, and we would cook burgers, steak, whatever on that part of the fire pit. All of this material was here at the property when we moved in. It came from a chimney. And at one point in time, the chimney was here. It functioned to heat the home, but it no longer is needed in this house. So the previous owners tore down the chimney, which I'm sure there was a good reason for, and placed all of those bricks and cinder blocks right here out in the random spot in the woods on the property, which I'm actually thankful for, because cinder blocks and bricks serve for many uses on properties, like the fire pit that I just shared with you, like the maple syrup cooker that I'm going to be making from that fire pit. Lots of uses you can use with that stuff. So I'm going to get started and start assembling that fire pit into a maple syrup cooker, and I hope it works out as I intended to in my mind. It's a little crazy right now, as you can tell. I've got snow all around me, and we're well into April. This is a little strange, but we've had a horrible spring here so far in Wisconsin with weather up and down constantly, which really messed up the maple syrup. So my wife and I harvested over 50 gallons of sap so far. I still have a few buckets hanging on trees. That means we'll get well over 1 gallon of maple syrup once it gets boiled down. This needs to become a much different shape here, so I'm going to basically remove all this, try to use the same area, build it up so that I can get a good wood fire going tomorrow morning bright and early. So the idea is to create a cooker that's going to support these 3 trays that I have. Stainless steel trays here, but these 3 trays here are 12 inches this way, 6 inches deep, and 20 inches wide. So I had to figure out a way to get these supported by those bricks and cinder blocks that I showed you, so that I can feed firewood underneath and get some really nice boiling of the sap going on in there. So there's 2 ways you can put these pans on there. One, you can have the pans resting on this bottom part here, kind of like this. So you can see that these bricks are supporting the pan here rather than on this lip right there. I would rather have the pans be supported on this lip in case they slip down and fall like this. You're going to make like that, see? And it probably won't happen, but I don't want to make a big mess. I don't want to waste all the hard work that I went through to gather this stuff. And it wouldn't be a major spill, but it's something I'm trying to avoid. So this width right here is not going to work, as you can see. It needs to get wider to fit those pans in there. So I'm going to have to use this larger space and reconfigure this so that they fit accordingly to their size. So here's 7 buckets of the 9. I have to go back and get some more. I also purchased smaller buckets as well because I kept getting sap after these were full. Wheel them down here in this cart. That's where they'll stay until they're made into syrup. So it is the next day, and this is what I came up with last evening to get this set up for this morning. Here's my cinder block setup. The reason why that one sticks out is because normally this would be kind of a decorative fire pit, I guess you could say. I tried to keep as much of the foundation as I could. That way I wouldn't have to reconfigure everything when I put this back for the summer. So this is the way it's going to go for now. I'll put the pans on there and show you what that looks like. Okay, so this is what it looks like. I've got the pans on there just getting nice and hot. They're probably ready to put some sap in there right now. And you can hear them making that noise because they're adjusting to the heat. They're expanding a little bit. So we've got cinder block here. I had 1 layer added here. That's the way it normally was when this was actually a fireplace. And this is just general like red brick, landscaping brick or whatever. And then this is another cinder block up here. So it went 2 cinder blocks in height with the addition of that all the way around it. And for these 3 pans here, it was 3 cinder blocks long this way. And then in the back side, put this in there to get some good draft coming out. You can see that there's some smoke coming from over here, but that's the steam because these are wet still. Some of these I had to pull off of the snow yesterday. So that steam is evaporating and eventually that'll stop. but we've got back here this end of a cinder block in width, a length of a cinder block, and then an end. And there's a little bit of a gap here and here because that's the required length between the cinder blocks in order to get the pans to fit in there. Kind of basic, a little primitive, but if you don't want to spend a lot of money to get into this, you just want to get started, and you're doing it for yourself and your family, I mean, that's really all you need. Let's get some sap going in there. So I can already hear it start to boil, so I do need to get more sap in here. This is the hottest one, second hottest, least hottest. So we're just kind of keep filtering them over like that. All right, so now we're making some progress here. It's actually working out pretty well. As I was moving some things around underneath with the coals and the firewood, down over here, as it turned out, the middle pan started becoming the warmest. So as long as we can get two that are at consistent boil, right now that one is, and this one still has a little bit to go. I just added some sap to that. This one's still the coolest, which is fine because that's the warming. And what I do is I take sap from the bucket, scoop it up, put it into the warming pan, and then once that gets warm enough, or these pans go down because it's boiled off enough sap, I'll simply add it from the warmer pan and drip it into each pan over here, which hopefully remain at a good boil throughout the process, so this process goes fast and we can get this done sooner than later. Whenever you can get wood that's good for fireplaces, outside fire pits I mean, like pine, things you wouldn't burn inside your home, wood that's got lower value, keep it because there's a use for it. It can be for cooking outside, it can be for a fire pit with your friends, it can be someone that needs to go on a camping trip. At least you have some for them, or you can take it with you and your family, or it can be for something like we're doing today. And that's what I have back here. This is all firewood I got from people when we had a tornado go through Wisconsin last year. I mean, it's not a ton, but it's quite a bit if you think about what you need for camping or outdoor recreation. I wouldn't burn this in my house. There's some cherry down there that I would burn in my home, but all of this is popple. There's some light maple in there, soft maple, which is okay to burn inside. It burns quickly. But all of this I've accumulated for free. All I had to do was split it. I didn't even have to cut it up. I put it in my truck, brought it home, split it, and then I just piled it there. It was a very simple process. I got tons of wood for free. And when I get things for free like that, I save them for situations like this, in this case making maple syrup, because you're going to go through a lot. It's an all-day burn. I'll be out here for a good 8 to 10 hours doing this, and you want free wood, not wood that you have to buy, because that kind of defeats the purpose of doing maple syrup yourself. You might as well buy it at the store for that kind of price. So a brief little update here. The pans have kind of reversed order for responsibilities. This pan right here was the warmest, now it's the coolest. This was in the middle, still is the middle, and this one was the coldest, and now it's the hottest. I think it has a lot to do with the fact that I put these bricks over here to keep in the heat, because every time you remove something from there, tons of heat comes out, and then the temperature lowers, and then you kind of have to restart to get a good boil going. However, as long as one or maybe even two of these are boiling really nice, that's kind of the idea. So this has become the warming pan, and this is the one that's kind of the transitional pan between the two temperatures, and that one is most likely going to be the finishing pan, but we'll see in a couple hours. We have 4 buckets left to boil down out of the 9, so we're getting there. All right, so now that you have your maple syrup done outside, it's condensed into one pan like we talked about. It goes from 3 to 1 or 2 to 1 or 4 to 1. Then want to bring it inside and use a regular pot that you would make soup in or something to boil noodles in, one of those larger pots you can put on your stove. It helps to have 2 pots going because you want to go twice as fast, but if you only have 1 pot, just use that, make it a maple syrup, and then fill it up again with sap that is going to be made into maple syrup. You want to make sure that the stove is nice and hot, but not too hot, because if it bubbles over, you have a huge mess inside the house and it's sticky and it's pretty disgusting and very difficult to clean up, so don't let it do that. If it gets a big foam head on top, remove your pot from the heat as soon as you possibly can, or your kettle or whatever you call it, and make sure that you just turn the heat down then. Now, once it's at a steady rumble, you're going to then see foam and stuff going around the edges. You can filter it before you put it on the pot. That's what we do. My wife helped me with that, so I filter it before it goes into the pans outside on the fire, then I filter it again before it goes onto the stove inside the house. As it's boiling, I constantly check with a meat thermometer. I highly recommend a digital thermometer that's accurate, simply because it's much easier to see, it's much easier to read. A hydrometer works if that's what you want to use instead, but I recommend a digital thermometer. Once your temperature gets to 219.5, that's when you want to take it off. Take it off because it's done, it's finished. Remove it from the heat immediately, set it somewhere, maybe let it cool down for a few minutes before you take a soup ladle or some little cup or something to fill up your mason jars to put it in, that you're going to store it in for, you know, throughout the year. Now, I constantly check the temperature using my meat thermometer. It's a digital meat thermometer, so it's going to tell me exactly where it's at. When I brought it in the house and got it up to a boil, I was already at 212 degrees, which is pretty good. And since it's at 212, I have to get up to 219. That's not very far, but this is the slow process. It'll go up to like 213, 214, 215, like every 10 minutes it goes up a degree. It takes a long time. Now you can really crank it up, but then you risk the foam overflowing the pot, and then you make a big mess, like I said you shouldn't do in the first place. So keep it at a good steady boil. I would not recommend leaving the kitchen at this point. I just stand there and kind of just hang out, read a book, do something, stay by the stove at all times. Try not to leave unless you absolutely have to. Keep an eye on it. And then once it finally gets to 219, that's when you take it off. Then I set it off to the side, and then I fill up my mason jars using a ladle and using some kind of funnel that sits on top of my mason jars. It's a canning funnel. It's specifically for canning, and it does the wide lids and it does the more narrow lids. And then you just move on to the next one, to the next one, to the next one, slowly fill it up over time, and then you'll be really surprised and happy with the taste and how much you actually get out of 50 gallons. So this year was a really good year for us. We ended up with a lot more maple syrup than we thought. Well, not a lot more, but just in this first batch, I suppose we can still tap more throughout the season. I have a few more buckets on the trees that I'm just leaving up just to see what happens. If I get a whole bunch more, maybe I'll make another batch. We ended up with like 48 gallons at the most. I'm pretty sure it's closer to 45 because I spilled a little bit when I filtered it, and you spill some when you move it from one pan to the next on the fire. And I don't know, let's just be generous and say 45. You should only end up with, at a 40-to-1 ratio, like a gallon, like 1.1, 1.2 to 1.3 gallons. But we ended up with 1.75 gallons, almost 2. I don't know how that worked out. I was pretty surprised. That means there's a really high sugar content in the trees we were tapping, but that's basically how it works. For me, there's a lot of indications of spring, like robins, ducks coming back to our property from the south, certain animals coming out and all these things. Obviously the snow going away, but the big indication, the one thing that really feels like spring for me, is when we've got the fire going and we're boiling sap. That to me is like spring is here. Whether the weather tells you that or not. I was doing it yesterday in the morning with snow on the ground to start, but when that starts happening, it's like finally my favorite time of year, the spring, when things are warming up, things are changing, things are getting green again, grass is coming back. That's a good thing to happen. And so it's like a leap, or like a milestone that we got to yesterday, having the maple syrup done, and now it's springtime officially for us. So thanks for supporting this video. Together We Harvest. My wife and I are working really hard in the future to get our garden going, to get our meat chickens up and running, and all the other projects we're working on this spring, summer, and fall to prepare us for this next year. So thanks for stopping by. Please remember to share this video and keep your life simple to increase its quality. We'll see you next time.